voice of the future. I've seen a living, beating heart built from scratch in a laboratory. It's a major breakthrough, a vital step towards custom-made human body parts for transplants. Now, say you had a serious heart or kidney disease. There'd be no more waiting months, maybe years for a donor. Your doctor would simply order a new organ designed especially for you. Imagine what that would mean to the thousands of Australians now on the list for organ transplants. And as you'll see, this isn't some scientist's crazy dream. It's already happening. This is the new frontier of science, blurring the line between human and animal. Custom-made organs growing inside sheep. An ear growing in a dish. A man-made finger. And perhaps most stunning of all, a heart made in a jar, alive and beating. A living heart.
It looks so nice.
I'm at Minnesota University, coming face to face with the future.
And you built this. So we built this.
Professor Doris Taylor is a heart repair specialist, changing transplant medicine forever, creating body parts made to order.
We said, wouldn't it be cool if we could build a heart? There aren't enough to go around. Wouldn't it be nice? And how are we going to do that?
It was a simple but brilliant idea. Professor Taylor literally grew this heart from scratch using the cells of a rat.
So we started with a dead rat heart. We literally used soap, detergent to wash all the cells out, burst the cells, wash them out, and we ended up with a ghost heart, a scaffold. Then we transplanted new cells back in, and we're teaching it how to be a heart and get stronger and beat harder every day.
And look what happened when they stitched the heart back into a live rat. How did you react?
I think the exact moment was yes. Literally. It was incredible. It was one of those wow moments in life.
Professor Taylor's breakthrough could revolutionise the entire transplant system. In Australia, we have one of the lowest organ donor rates in the world. And of the 1,800 people waiting for life-saving transplants, at least one will die each week. Hospitals could literally grow complex organs, like much-needed hearts, on demand.
For people who already are living with heart failure, the hope is that we can take cells from their body and build an organ that matches their body. Take a scaffold from either a human cadaver or a pig, transplant those cells, grow it in the lab for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, a few months, and then transplant that.
People like Brooke Seymour can only dream of the possibilities.
Look, the horse is looking through the window.
This young mum from Brisbane contracted a fatal condition called cardiomyopathy, probably while pregnant with her son Manny.
Looks like he's playing.
They told me that my heart will not continue working as hard as it is for much longer.
And what was the bottom line?
That I had to have a heart transplant.
And how did you react to that?
Well, obviously, I'd had a son who was 18 months old, and I thought, am I going to get to see him get married? So, those type of things crossed my mind.
That you wouldn't see him grow up and that you wouldn't be his mum.
That's right.
Is Grandad feeding the sheep some milk?
Brooke needs a new heart within 2 years. If she could grow her own, it would mean an end to the terrible daily vigil of waiting for a donor organ.
We try to live a normal life as possible, but we also make sure our phone's close at hand.
And are there particular times of day when the phone rings that you think, your heart goes to your throat?
Well, if you receive a call late at night, you think, is this the call? My heart races. I always actually get a bit panicky about that.
Wouldn't it be good one day to have a bank of hearts just ready to go?
Oh, that would be wonderful. I guess that would be a dream come true for me.
Back in Professor Taylor's Minnesota lab, her team is already looking beyond that dream. As well as the heart, they've also grown a liver and plan to produce a whole raft of other organs.
There are far more kidney transplants than there are heart transplants every year. Liver, lung, cystic fibrosis, pancreas. If we could cure a kid with diabetes, that'd be fabulous.
And so that would be the same technique. Take the organ, you clean it out, you apply stem cells, and it functions.
Bottom line is, if it gets a blood supply, we can build it.
My classroom is actually pretty close to where everything is. And then
This
people
young
walk ahead of
woman
me and
is
meet me
living
inside.
proof that it can be done.
I love this campus.
Uni student
kind of hard
Caitlin
because it is a
McNamara
big campus.
suffers spina
And you can
bifida
easily get
and
lost,
rarely
but
left home
I walk with
before
my
doctors
teachers every
grew
day and
her
we do a
a
buddy
new
system
bladder.
for the-
Before you had the operation, what was it like?
It was like, I'm saying it's like a nightmare because I just didn't feel like, I never hung out with my friends, like I wouldn't leave the house.
Caitlin's bladder never fully developed, so doctors created a mould, added Caitlin's own cells, and grew a new one. It may not be as complex as a heart or a liver, but it's an extraordinary achievement nonetheless. Is life better now?
Life is a lot better now.
So now you can have a regular teenage life.
Yes.
That's a
I
wonderful
actually-
thing, hey?
I look forward to walking out of my house and saying, I don't have to come back for a while.
That remarkable success has spawned a whole range of cutting-edge advances, each one more stunning than the last. This is an ear.
It's an ear, exactly. And basically, what you're seeing is she's actually coating this over and over with cells.
Dr. Anthony Atala, who spent 20 years developing the bladder, is now attempting even more intricate body parts in his North Carolina lab. But the basic principle's the same. Human stem cells grown on a polymer mold.
Which is a fancy word for just a scaffold, if you will, a mold.
Yeah.
And the concept is that once you coat it with the cells, the mold will go away and the tissue will take over.
So we came back in 2 months, you'd have an ear.
Correct.
And are you good at fingers? Or are you better at ears?
Well, we're better at ears so far.
Fingers are harder.
Fingers are much harder.
Okay. There is another way to grow organs, and that's to have animals grow them for you. Now, these sheep look like normal sheep, behave like sheep, sound like sheep, but they're not normal. In fact, they're partly human, 15% human. And this is where our story gets a little terrifying. On this experimental farm at the University of Nevada, Professor Esmail Zanjani is showing us his science of the lambs. The surgeon here is feeling for an 8-week-old fetus inside its mother's womb. That's alive. That's the baby lamb inside
That's
the sheep.
uterus, yes.
The unborn lamb is then injected with human stem cells. So it's human into sheep
That's correct.
and sewn back inside the mother. And get this,
Stem cells.
when that lamb is born in 3 months, it will be literally part human. They're still sheep?
There is still sheep, but they contain human elements within them.
The lamb will have the body of a sheep, but human cells in its organs, and those human parts will precisely match the person who provided the cells. The hope is, if these organs are transplanted back into the human patient, they'll be compatible. So you could put the sheep liver into the human.
That's
The sheep part of it is attacked and killed off
That's
by
correct.
the host's body, the human's
As
body,
soon as possible.
and you're left with essentially a human organ.
That's correct. It is possible to think of a farm that has a number of animals that are readily available for transplant purposes.
Imagine that. Your own flock of sheep carrying your organs in case you need a transplant. Sound like science fiction? Well, here's the scary part. If the human and animal DNA were somehow to mix in the sheep, highly unlikely but still possible, Dr. Zanjani will have created a monster, a strange new hybrid creature. What would you do with a mutant sheep? Would you kill it or start a college fund for it?
You would have to sacrifice them.
Could you just slaughter a sheep, though, that was partly human?
Yes, I think we could, because the way...
It's a tough one, isn't it?
I'm not sure it's a tough one, but I can't quite get my head around it right now. I don't know. This is something that society has to start thinking about. I don't know.
The trouble is, a lot of this speculative science fiction type, biotech innovation is just that. It's a science fiction. Look,
Dr. Patrick Dixon is a former physician who lectures in biological trends.
And quite frankly, taking human cells and injecting them into the fetus of a sheep in order to create a hybrid organ is already looks to me not only tacky and yuck, but so last century I can't believe that anyone would waste medical research money doing such a crazy thing.
What's the Frankenstein scenario with what's going on here?
We're in very strange territory here, because of course I'm asking myself, what happens when it's a 1 in 1,000 mix? What happens when it's a 1 in 100 mix? Or as we've seen here, what happens when it's a 15% mix? What happens when it's a 51% mix? I mean, what point do you decide that this animal is actually eligible for human rights?
Your opponents call it Frankenstein science. Is it?
No. The sheep, the animal that contains these organs and cells, remains as completely sheep. It does not think like a human, sense the human feelings, cannot talk. It just remains sheep all the time and just speaks the sheep language, which is ba-ba.
Science fiction or not, the fact is, none of this is far off fantasy. It's happening sooner than you think. For transplant patients everywhere, the brave new world can't come fast enough.
I think we're years away and not decades away. It's not unreasonable to imagine that within the next 4 to 5 years we'll have some organ we can transplant.
So this is a revolution.
You hate to say that about your own work, but we're certainly excited. And we think it's a door. We think we've opened a door in the field of transplantation.
I thought the $6 Million Man was pretty terrific. In case you missed it, he was one of the great television action heroes, the crippled test pilot who was put back together with brand new bionic limbs. Well, that was 30 plus years ago, and it's taken all that time for fact to start catching up with fantasy. Now, though, the scientists are looking at a $6 billion man, and he's still very much a work in progress. But the latest technology is quite astounding. Young men and women with terrible injuries are actually being rebuilt, given new lives that once would never have been possible. This is the shocking reality of war. A side of war we rarely see, and one I found quite harrowing. Young men and women barely out of their teens, struggling with bodies that have been torn apart. I imagine it was quite devastating when you realised that you'd lost an arm and a leg.
Not only that, I lost a best friend of mine. He was my driver. But, life is pretty hard without an arm and a leg.
It's a confronting place, but these soldiers have little time for self-pity. Here at Amputee Alley, it's all about rebuilding their lives.
And how did you lose your arm?
Roadside bomb, basically. It's horrible. I don't wish it on anybody, but it's something that you have to deal with, because I see a lot of people that it just consumes them, and I don't want to be that person.
A little better?
Yeah.
But the news isn't all grim. Using the latest bionic technology, doctors at the US military's Walter Reed Hospital can now offer their patients new limbs with amazing capabilities.
It's sort of got to start life again almost. It's like being born all over again.
Marco Robledo lost his limbs only 2 months ago in a roadside bomb attack. But now, with his anxious mum looking on, he's being fitted with new bionic limbs, including an arm that he controls by flexing his muscles.
So to turn your wrist, you concentrate on a muscle, and that muscle is... It's the bicep. This is the leg.
Yes.
This is your tool. It's not your friend necessarily, huh?
I mean, it's a part of me. I wouldn't call it a friend per se. I don't talk to it.
I bet you do occasionally.
I get mad at it.
Out in the grounds of Walter Reed, we caught up with Corporal Kenny Lyne. To see him now, it's nothing short of remarkable. When we first met Kenny a year ago, he'd just been hit in a mortar attack on the outskirts of Baghdad.
As soon as it happened, I cried out and I said, "Oh God, help me." My ears were ringing and I felt like someone hit me in the back of the head with a frying pan.
Kenny was bleeding to death, but like so many soldiers in this war who'd once have died on the battlefield, revolutionary combat medicine was keeping him alive. By the time Kenny arrived at this field hospital, he'd already lost half his blood. His blood pressure was critically low. He had deep shrapnel wounds to his head, neck, both legs and both arms. His left foot was turning white from the lack of circulation. And when surgeons were unable to stop the bleeding, they had no choice but to amputate. But within days, Kenny was back in America and on the long road to recovery.
I'm going to get everything back. That's my goal right now. I'm going to fight to retain everything I had before. I didn't think that I was going to die. It never once crossed my mind, I'm going to die.
Which is amazing.
I used to say in the hospital, the quote from the $6 Million Man, "We have the technology, we can rebuild."
Looks good in this one, Roger.
But it hasn't been that easy.
Steve Austin, astronaut. A man barely alive.
Ever since the TV series The $6 Million Man, Hollywood has created enormous expectations.
We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man.
Promising miracles.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
That medical science is only now delivering. This is a sneak preview of the first prototypes hardwired into humans. Its technology so secret, it's still classified by the US Defense Department.
For me, I'm excited about being able to reach up, and that's something that I had wanted, and before I knew there weren't powered shoulders, I wanted a powered shoulder.
It's the Iraq War's horrible toll of amputees that's driving these breakthroughs.
Has this guy got a name?
This is Pat.
And it's the US military that's pouring hundreds of millions into creating what's now a $6 billion man.
Should we have a look at what Pat can do, what you were talking about?
Often John Bigelow heads a team developing artificial limbs that are controlled by the brain.
Take the residual nerves that used to travel down the arm and essentially graft them to the muscles on the chest. Now, those same signals that used to go from your brain down to your arm to open and close your hand are now amplified by your chest muscles. We can pick those signals up with surface electrodes and actuate the hand.
You were activating that hand by using the brain to activate those muscles.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's not bad.
It's very intuitive, right? Doesn't have to think about it at all. Elbow down.
If you think that's incredible, what comes next is even more astonishing. Soon, amputees will actually be able to feel through their new bionic limbs.
You can actually feel it.
Sorry? I don't have a hand, but I will feel it?
You can actually feel it.
Wow, that is amazing.
You can feel temperature, you can feel pressure, you can feel vibration, you can feel friction, you can feel different levels of, different gradients of texture, if you will.
It all sounds very science fiction, but the technology already in use is mind-boggling. Take a long look at this hand. Few would pick it as artificial.
There's a difference, but not a huge difference.
It's pretty strange to actually look down and see. You're like, you have to get used to that because it does look real.
Yeah. There's not much. There's a difference, but not a huge difference. Sorry to be taking you
That's okay.
in hand.
It's called the iLimb, and John German is able to activate it through sensors that pick up signals from the muscles and nerves.
And the electrodes are on the inside?
Yep, electrodes are on the either side, and they match up here for opening, and then here for closing. It just goes right on. Oh yeah, for pizza, right? Kraft? This one? Okay.
Peel away that stunningly realistic silicon skin, and you lay bare the technology that's changed John's life.
Banana split, Lauren? Okay. So really in my brain, I say open and I say close, and it corresponds. So it kind of is a function of the brain. It's amazing because it's been a long time that I've actually watched through my own eyes something that looks like my own left hand reach out and grasp around, and fingers fold around that object. It's kind of freaky. Oh, wait, man.
The iLimb costs about $20,000, but for John German, this new arm has been truly liberated.
There's a ghost up there. I couldn't hold a handheld can opener with the old hand. I couldn't peel a banana. I couldn't pick up a flat object on a table.
Was there anything in particular that you really missed that you have now as a result of these bionics?
The older bionics were all about power. They were about one grip, clamping down on whatever it is as hard as possible. So, to hold a child's hand, maybe,
Your hand now has subtlety.
It has subtlety. It does.
We may see a day where there really are no disabled people.
There'll be no disabled because of this technology.
I believe so. Some people think I'm crazy, but it's staggering to think about what will happen in this century. It's a lot more difficult.
Hugh Herr has designed and built some of the world's most advanced bionic limbs, and he's in a unique position to test them out. Professor Herr is a double amputee. His latest invention, a foot with its own brain.
This is the first prosthesis in history that allows for a completely natural gait. There's 9 sensors in the computer. The brains of the ankle are in this box. So it's the computer's reading the sensory information 1,000 times a second and making a decision on how the ankle should move.
So it's making a decision on whether you're walking over a footpath or on some grass or...
We're going up things, up steps, up hills, or down.
Professor Herr lost part of both legs from frostbite after a climbing accident at the age of 17. But this is a man who clearly refuses to concede any limitations. He's still out there, tackling the most difficult mountains he can find.
You would not have your legs back, given the ones you now have.
Of course not.
You don't mean that, surely. You're happier with artificial limbs?
Of course. Why not? I can upgrade my legs, you can't. So when there's a new, faster computer, a better motor, I can put that on my ankle, you can't. So when I'm 80, my balance will be better than even 18-year-olds.
energy than anyone with biological legs. That's exciting. Part of my body isn't a blank sheet for which to create.
While that may be a few years away, these soldiers are already going ahead in leaps and bounds. At this year's New York City Triathlon, the graduates of Walter Reed's Amputee Alley were out to make a point. Racing on bionic legs that may soon give them an advantage over the able-bodied athletes.
What will probably happen if you look out 20, 30 years, the Paralympics will just be faster than the Olympics.
Well, what does it say when those with artificial limbs do better than those who don't?
It's an exciting day. It's very common, fairly common today for me to get a call from a person in a hospital. They've been in a car accident and they ask, should I get my leg amputated? And often the answer is yes. Your quality of life would improve. So that's happening a lot now, which is it's very interesting.
So people are making a choice to lose a limb knowing that their lives will be better with an artificial limb.
Correct.
And that's a big leap.
Yeah.
That's a psychological leap that we've not been prepared to make before.
Mm-hmm.
For Kenny Line, this isn't so much about being faster or stronger. It's simply about regaining his life. And the future looks pretty bright for the young man whose life was shattered just a year ago.
I want to be a BMW mechanic. I do. I love the cars. I own one. I've owned one before. It's been my dream since I was like 7 years old to have one. This isn't the rest of my life. This is a year, 2 years away from my injury, and then I'll be normal again. As normal as I will be.
You could be the bionic man.
Certainly. Sign me up.
So your timber floors looking raw, scuffed, scraped, and a little sore. Perhaps it's time for a little restore. Give your timber a shine, make it look just fine. Scuffs go away. No standing anymore. Sealed and restored. Shrink in just one day. For restore floors and more, you need Electro-Dry. Restore with Electro-Dry. Restore with Electro-Dry. Electro-Dry.
Welcome back. I find this next story equally exciting and frightening. For less than $1,000, you can now own a 3D printer, hook it up to your home computer, and make... Welcome back. I find this next story equally exciting and frightening. For less than $1,000, you can now own a 3D printer, hook it up to your home computer, and make anything your mind can imagine. Trinkets are easy, gadgets are a breeze. Even a new car is possible if you have the technical know-how. With 3D printing, it seems you can print the future, and the internet is full of its wonders. But with the good also comes potential for bad, and any number of experts are willing to show you how. In the awe-inspiring world of 3D printing, the line between ingenuity and insanity is being blurred.
Top speed when she's up and running. About 40 mile an hour on electric. And on gas? 70. Wow. Yep.
How clever are these Canadian engineers? They thought up this futuristic car, then they built it using a 3D printer.
I feel very privileged, the first passenger.
And how many lives will be saved with this medical miracle? Making body parts like ears and noses. This used to be science fiction, now it's science fact. And it's absolutely amazing. But how crazy is this? Forget saving lives. Now the 3D printer can help kill you with a homemade pistol. So that's the springs and the barrel and the handle.
That's the
strongest looking barrel I've ever seen.
This is the brave new world. This is a really worrying development. These things are dangerous. They will kill you and they'll kill those that are standing in front of it. That's why this is so frightening.
Printing is simply that. Computer-controlled jets of hard plastic which build incredibly precise and strong three-dimensional objects, layer by layer. Anything your mind can think of, a 3D printer can make. And that brings Cody Wilson's deadly handgun, which he designed on his laptop computer. Suddenly it comes to life on a backshed printer.
Anyone can have this gun now. This is something you can no longer stop by traditional mechanisms. You get the gun magically produced for you, right? With a click of a button. You can download a gun, print it on a 3D printer, and it will fire a bullet.
Now, it's no surprise we're in Austin, Texas. The Wild West and guns seem to go together. So we're at the local rifle range, and Cody is assembling his freshly printed weapon.
This complicated part right there.
Putting this DIY gun together is child's play, until you remember that it fires real bullets.
We're ready for the test fires.
We far enough back?
Yeah.
Cody has misnamed his pistol the Liberator. This particular model is a work in progress, so he wisely chooses discretion over valor, using a piece of fishing line to pull the trigger.